What is up, Ridge Runner Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. We are here joined by two repeat guests, this time to talk about their respective wins at the Rim to River 100 in wild and wonderful West Virginia last week. All four of us had the pleasure of being at that race, and we are so stoked to get to hear from HollyAnn and Caleb about their race. They both just absolutely blew expectations totally out of the water this year. It was a really incredible day to be out there for everybody involved, and we are so happy that they are joining us tonight. If you don't know, my name's Cam Wrench. I'm the sixth man of the nation. I'm joined tonight by Wesley Harton, coming to us from Logan, Utah. Wesley, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Cam. I'm so excited to talk to Caleb and HollyAnn about their race. It was crazy at how far up they were at the turnaround point. And I'm kind of excited to kind of hear their emotions with the whole race day for them. So let's dive into things how we normally get things started. What is everyone drinking tonight? Starting with our two guests.
We'll have a Forest Fest Oktoberfest by Big Timber.
And I have a perpetual IPA from Troegs, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. And
Interesting.
Big Timber's the Fayetteville one, right?
No, sadly.
Bummer.
That's Free Folk. We love Free Folk.
My favorite.
Probably, yeah, definitely. Big Timber is in Elkins.
Also very good, though. Very good.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right, and I have got a Bitterroot Brewing Dirt Church Hazy IPA here. What about you, Wes?
Got the Wasatch Brewing Company Island Hop IPA again. Lovely little can here. So excited to drink this one tonight.
Celebrating all of the tropical biomes in Utah, of course.
Obviously.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start digging into all things Rim to River 100. As you know, we absolutely adore this race. Laura and Brian have done such an incredible job of putting on this race. It's really unlike any other second year race, and even a first year race in the first year than I've ever attended. And of course, HollyAnn and Caleb, you both ran it in the first year. Tell us, what were you thinking going back into this? Obviously, you had very different situations going into it. Caleb, you were the returning champion, and HollyAnn, you went into it as one of the favorites, but you had a not ideal race day. You ended up grinding out a finish in like 27 hours, if I remember correctly. So, HollyAnn, if you want to lead us off, what motivated you to sign up for this race again after your first finish at this one?
Yeah, so last year, I think my finish time ended up being 27 hours and 57 minutes. And I started off with a really fantastic day, felt great, ran a sub 5, 50K, still came through 50 miler in a great time. But while I was headed down into Fayette Station, which last year was pretty close, between 45 and 48 miles in, I felt a twinge in my knee. There's like a really rocky section there. And as I was coming down, I think my knee just I don't know, gave out. And so I tried to hike down and was hoping that, it wasn't anything serious. But at that point, every single time I tried to run, it was a sharp pain. I couldn't run. It just kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I don't know, I fought it for a couple miles. And then finally, the realization set in that I wasn't going to be able to run at all for the remainder of the race, which at that point, was 55 miles. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow. And so I was trying not to think about it as the mileage as a whole, but trying to get to the turnaround side my pacer and just kind of break it down and make my way to the finish line. Nowhere near what I anticipated last year. But it was a wild, traumatic experience, and I finished, and my immediate thoughts were, I want to come back and do a 100-mile distance. some years down the line. But it's going to be a really long time because it truly was traumatic. And then it only took me like a month or two to realize, you know, like this is a huge goal of mine to see what I can do at this distance healthy. And they opened registration on January 1st, and I signed back up again. And that's kind of what's been in my head this entire year while I've been training, was just coming back, and it's almost a redemption. What can I do at this distance? How far can I make it healthy? And I don't know. Yeah.
So it was a little more like just exploring your limits then, because they're like, I've done this, I know that it's possible, right? You're like, in my head, my legs have put 100 miles underneath them in a little more than one day. It's like, but you know, I know what caliber of runner I am, and it's like, what can I do if I can run this whole thing? Was that kind of what you were
Mhm.
thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Caleb, you know, I mentioned it earlier, but going into this, you were in a much different position. You obviously won, and then because it was a first year race, you set the course record. Then, what was your inclination to come back? You know, was it the free race entry that Bryant gave, and you're just like, well, I don't have any plans then yet, or did you have other aspirations?
No, I definitely wanted to come back and win again. Like I told you before in that interview a couple weeks ago, I feel like you've never really truly done something until you've done it twice. And even if I didn't win, I just wanted to do it again, just to relive the experiences, because I had such a great time in the first race that we did. You know, it's your first 100, so it's truly like a special place in your heart. Like, you always want to go back to home, and I consider Fayetteville and Rim's River my home now. And I really I wanted to win. Obviously, that was the goal going into it. So part of that, like, that was definitely high up on my list. And yeah, I just wanted to see if I could do it or not.
Well, I'm glad you did it. I at least got one prediction right out there for my absurd, ridiculous prediction video as usual. But kind of talk about your guys' training going into this race after completing 100 miles in round one, the first year of this race. Talk about what your training looked like going into this year's race. What did you do differently from last year's race that you really focused on? And just kind of talk about, like, big picture, what did this 12 months look like for you?
Do you want to start or you want me?
I can, I guess. For those who don't know, me and Caleb are training partners, so we share a lot of miles together. He's my coach and my training partner. Last year was a lot different. There's like kind of an obvious reason to why I sustained the injury that I did. I had a SI joint issue about a month out from Rim to River last year, and ended up having to take a couple of weeks off. And no one wants to go into a race having like 3 weeks off in the month leading up to a 100-mile race. So this year the goal is just see how long we can stay healthy. Let's stay healthy and kind of like build up to this race. And we accomplished that. We stayed healthy, and I think we had a lot more long runs. I think our longest run was 30 total. Or for me, I'm not sure about Caleb.
We had 31.
31 total. Well, are you including Canal Race, I guess?
No, the Marshall or the Greenbrier River Marathon, where we did
We ended up being 31.
long cool down. Yeah.
But we sprinkled races in basically every month leading up. I had way more trail runs than we had last year. Yeah, I think the training this year was exponentially better than last year. But I can let you speak on that too, Caleb.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll get a little more insight on her training going into last year too. So, she came off a huge marathon build. She did 3 marathons in like 4 months, from 2019, the fall of 2019 to the spring of 2020. And we actually had one more on the schedule with Boston, but it got canceled due to COVID. So that like COVID kind of allowed us to like take a step back and kind of regroup, recover. And, we were planning some trail races throughout the summer, but they all got canceled. So at that point, I'm like, we got to do something just to keep us, engaged and just striving towards a goal. So we talked, and she really had two goals in mind. She wanted to break 5 in the mile and to break 17 in the 5K. So we started training for that, and she ended up breaking 5 in the mile, and then she signed up for a 100-mile race. So obviously, we had to go back to the drawing board and start training for that. And I feel like part of the reason she got the SI joint injury to begin with was kind of like on my fault. Going from like more speed type workouts to doing 16-mile long runs on the trails. It maybe just was too hard of a transition, too fast. So this year, going into it, a couple of goals for her. One was to get her confidence back up, because obviously power hiking 45 miles with your knee just stinging pain the whole time. You gotta get a couple races underneath your belt to fully think, hey, I'm still a runner again. I can still do this. So we picked the Grayson Highlands 50K to be our first 50K, and it was fantastic. Like, it's a beautiful day, beautiful place, good competition. She ended up beating all the boys but one. Getting second overall, first female, breaking the record. So that was a good step forward in the right direction. And then, she told me she wanted to do triathlons and duathlons. So I thought that was perfect, because that was a way to train differently, but still get the aerobic output that you need for a 100-mile race. So she was biking, swimming, running. We held her base mileage at like 45 to 50, but she was adding on 3 cycles of 20 miles or above. She was swimming, I can't remember how many miles, but, good bit. And I think that really helps provide that strong aerobic base. And then we went into more of a fall season where she did the Canal Trace 50K, we did the Greenbrier River Trail Marathon, and then ultimately Rim to River. For me, my training, I really just want to get consistent, because last year I kind of let myself fall off a bit. So I was only hitting around 50 to 60 miles before Rim to River. And that's not enough. That's really not enough. And definitely, I needed more long runs. I needed more just long efforts. And it's just hard for me, and probably hard for her as well, to just go out and run 30 miles, like to have the motivation to go do it. So we trick ourselves into doing these long runs where we'll meet up with Brandon Perry and make it more like an event. Or we'll do like a marathon, it's like the Greenbrier River Marathon, and then add on 2 or 3 miles before and after, and end up getting 30 miles that way. I feel like it's easier to do stuff like that than just to go out for 5 hours at a time and run. But, going into this race, I felt really confident, just where I was at physically. I was PRing in the marathon and 50K. I felt pretty good, and definitely had a great summer of races as well. But, there's always that like voice in the back of your head, like, you're not doing enough. I check Daniel Green's Strava every day. I see he's doing way more than I am. And that, I knew that would be in my head, definitely was the week of and during the race. So, hats off to him to putting the pressure on. But yeah, I checked Strava a little too much. But ultimately, like, HollyAnn kept, getting in my head, like, just run your race, train the way you're supposed to train. Don't worry about anybody else, because that's what I tell her all the time. And ultimately it worked out.
So kind of going off
Yeah.
that and like checking the Strava and all this stuff, like I'm assuming you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to go out here and win this race again in year 2 as a back-to-back champion. Kind of talk about how you dealt with that pressure, if there was any at all that you put on yourself, and then kind of how you just pushed it to the side and went out there and had an incredible day.
I complained a lot to Holly Ann, and she made fun of me and we get mad. That's how it usually worked out. And it made it worse because we watched the Into the Well documentary the night before, and it made both of us have flashbacks of really painful moments during last year's race that we forgot about. So yeah, I didn't sleep very well the night of because I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. But yeah, the pressure was there, but once the gun goes off, it's just a fun time. We were out there having a blast. Me, Holly Ann, Dan, we were all just joking around for the first several miles. So once we get down into it, pressure is just something that makes you anxious beforehand, but during the race, it doesn't really affect you.
Yeah, great answer. Do you have anything to add on that note, Holly Ann?
I don't know. It's more just trying to convince him like there's no reason for anyone to ever focus on someone else's training, because whenever you've been in the running business for so long, you understand, like what mileage per week fits best for your body, and that's going to be different from. So this person is going to have less than you and they still might kick your butt, and this person's going to have more than you and they might. And it's just drawing that out and realizing, hey, I'm doing what I need to do to get me to that finish line and healthy and in the best time that I can accomplish that in. So just trying to convince him that every week.
Yeah. All right. And so we're going to go ahead and start our deep dive into the actual race day. Caleb, you already mentioned it a little bit there, but race morning, right? You wake up, you get your oatmeal party going. I assume y'all had an Airbnb together.
I
Yep.
missed out. I missed out.
Oh,
We had our own party that morning. But yeah, what's going through your mind before all this? Is it kind of, are you feeling a little bit calmer? Is it kind of like finally real now, or does that only kick in, once the gun actually goes off? Or things like kind of hectic the morning of? What's that like? And Holly Ann, if you want to start off with this one.
It was a little calmer than last year. Might not have been for Caleb, but last year we had the film crew at our Airbnb at 4 a.m. and I was just trying to don't forget anything because I'm just focused on the film crew and them following me. But anyway, I just kind of got up, already had always preset coffee, always have my vest and everything ready to go so that I don't have to do too much before we leave. And I feel like we got to the race start at the perfect time, just before the huge crowd of people came in. So I guess the only stressful thing for me on race morning was the starting line kind of started a different way than last year. I don't know if you guys were at the starting line last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like sitting in the car trying to warm my hands and feet right before I went out to the finish line. And I was kind of waiting for everyone to come on the left side of the banner before I got up and went over there. And I almost waited a little too long. And whenever I got up to the starting line, there was like less than 30 seconds left until he said it was time to go. So that was a little stressful. But other than that, I felt like race morning was pretty laid back.
Yeah, what about you, Caleb?
I was like nervous as all get out. And like I actually made the comment, like, I don't feel like I'm about to run 100 miles right now. Like, this isn't real. Like, there's no way. And I was very anxious because I have a system. We all have our systems. I have to use the restroom at least twice, if not 3 times beforehand, before I'm good to go. And I was very unsuccessful. And so we got there early and I didn't have to go. So there's no line. I try anyway. Nothing happens. And then, I wait, drink more coffee. And finally I'm able to go, but there's a huge line out the door. So I ended up going behind the building on the old race course. But other than that, like besides that, Isaac Waite helped me out with some toilet paper. But anyway, other than that, it was really nice having like my dad, HollyAnn, mom, Chris, everybody there, because I kept like bouncing back and forth from each of them. They kind of kept me calm. And then, yeah, I was a little confused about the start of the race as well, because I was on the wrong side. Eventually, I just crossed over, and then I got really worried that HollyAnn was going to make it. And then she finally showed up, so it worked out. But there's a lot of anxious emotions going into it.
Well, I'm glad you were on the wrong side. It's giving people behind you some time to catch up. You know what I mean? Like that was really the only chance that people had to be within a couple of yards of you guys. Because in the early start of this race, you guys absolutely took off up that hill. Talk about the early miles of this race and take us like all the way to Kennard or so.
I'll let you start, Caleb.
Okay. Well, so the gun goes off. We start rolling, and sure enough, I look to my right.
Sprinting, by the way.
No,
No.
we were just running, and yeah, I look around. There's nobody beside us, but just me and her. I'm like, well, we're back again. This is exactly what happened last year. And then I like looked around. It's like, Dan, get up here, come on. So he made his way up, and then it was just us three for a good little while. I lost a gel right there in the first 15 feet because it bounced out of my pocket. So that was great. But then we just ran up the hill and we started talking and just we were literally just having a blast talking for the first several miles. Didn't check our watches once. I thought we were going about 10-minute pace, maybe an 11-minute pace, but ended up looking at it yesterday. It's like 8-minute pace. So I guess we were going a little fast. But it's just so much fun. And then eventually what was it? Dirk, what place did he get? He made his way up there, and then a guy named Brendan made his way up. So we had a good group of 5 through Concho, and we pretty much kept that group throughout the first, I would say, through Arbuckle Creek, and then we started to split up a little bit going towards Thurman Bridge. Yeah, I mean, it was fun just being able to hang out with a group and talk to some people we didn't know and kind of learn their story about how they found out about the race and everything, and try to not fall as much as possible. Dan fell in the first 3 miles. Saw HollyAnn turn a couple ankles as well. But yeah, so Holly, you want to go?
Before you dive in, HollyAnn, Caleb taking shots at Dan here. Dan is retaliating in the chat saying, ask Bowen how many times he dropped his water bottle in the first 10 miles. Do we have an answer to that one?
Like 3 or 4. It was stupid. So, okay. I did wear a vest I've never worn before. My Uncle Bobby, he's like showing all the stuff he had. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I have one similar. He's like, oh, where's this one? This one's better. So I wore it. We fit it all out. It felt great, but I never felt it with the actual water bottle in there. And I didn't fill up the water bottle. I was going to wait till like Thurman or somewhere else, and it just kept falling out because there's nothing in it. So yeah, Dan got it for me one time. I think Dirk got it for me one time, and eventually I just held it because I couldn't handle it flopping out every mile or so.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Laura and Brian are listening. It sounds like Dan got and carried your water bottle for a little bit. Is that?
That's muling, I think.
I was gonna say I think we might have a new champion, folks.
Yeah.
HollyAnn, dive into your early miles, kind of what it was like going through those with the group.
Yeah, not much more to add than Caleb. Like he said, we stayed together until around Arbuckle. Kind of had a goal to keep those first 17-ish, similar to what we did last year. And it, like he said, it felt like it, but it was actually a little bit faster than anticipated. I kept waiting for Daryl Dorsey to catch up to us like he did last year. He ended up catching up right before Arbuckle, and then we ran together through Thurman and back. And so I know I kept turning to Caleb, turning around saying, Daryl, are you there? But no, he didn't. He ran a lot smarter this year. And he ended up being 3rd overall. It was awesome.
So kind of going through the middle miles of the race now, after the Canard aid station, you've got your first real climb of the day. The first 27 miles of that race are so runnable, like you guys were talking about paces and whatnot. There's really no real crazy climbs in the early 27 there, but you do get your first one at 27. What was the kind of the mindset with your guy, the hills, and how'd you tackle that first one? HollyAnn, if you want to start with this one.
Yeah, last year, I think with training, we've done a lot more elevation this year, I guess, than I've ever done before in my life. And I started to realize over the last few training runs leading up to the 100-miler that I was getting pretty fit at hills, mountains. And so I knew that climb was coming up around 27. And last year I probably walked 8/10 of it, if not more. And as I started to leave the aid station, it just felt great and natural to run it. So I ended up running a majority of that hill, which I would think would be probably the hardest one. What do you think, Caleb?
That could be. I mean, I think Fayette Station Hill is probably the hardest to run up, but I don't know. I don't know. It just might just be where it's at too. Like, in the 60s rather than 27.
That's true.
But
I think
it's definitely,
elevation-wise, this one is supposed to be worse, right?
yeah.
I guess I lost my train of thought there.
You were
Nope.
talking about how it felt a lot better this year, and you ran up most of that hill compared to walking up most of it the year before.
Yeah. So I think I got into the trails, and so once you get to the top, it kind of flattens out for a couple of miles before you get to K Morris Minor, and you have to do another technical climb. And I'm really looking down at 31, and I was at 437 for the 50K, and I was really excited about that. And the same for K Morris Minor. I was able to run a lot more of that this year, and it just kind of felt really smooth to me. So that was really encouraging for the race. And I think Caleb will agree with me. Like, I felt like I was just having a blast out there. I was smiling basically the entire race, and I know he was too.
Yeah, Caleb, if you want to kind of pick back up there, what were sort of your thoughts coming out of the Kennard aid station? How were you feeling? Where were you at?
Yeah. So, like, when we were running the Southside Brooklyn Trail, me and Dan kind of talked about what we were going to do at the aid station. So he talked about maybe loosening up his shoes a little bit and then filling his water pack up, a tailwind, and then he was just going to roll out there. And I was just going to eat a little bit and kind of just check up with the fam and then go. But he went through it so much faster than I thought he was going to, because he left and I was like still eating a little bit. I was like, well, shoot. So I had to go, and he got a little good lead on me, but I probably pushed a little bit too hard trying to catch him. I tried not to. I tried to make it as gradual as possible. But, we ran the whole thing and ended up catching him shortly before, maybe like 3/4 of the way up. And then we ran together for a good bit. And then after that, he would kind of like leave me for a while, and I would catch back for a while. And just we would run together for a good bit. So it was kind of just like, leaving me, catching up, leaving, catching up type deal. And then we ran up Kmore Miners Trail. Definitely thought I took it a little bit easier than last year, because last year I felt like I strained going up it. And this year, I walked when I wanted to, I ran when I wanted to. But I actually ended up running faster than I did last year. I looked at the Strava segment and it was faster. So I don't know what happened there, but it's just the fact that we were running together and just kind of having fun at that time. But I put a little bit of a gap on him going up to the top towards the aid station, no, we went to Long Point first. So he passed me going to the Long Point, and then we went into the aid station together. we really didn't stop to look at the overlook or anything, but we did manage to do something kind of cool. We all three picked Kelly Green keys from the blocks, and we're all Marshall people, so I thought that was kind of cool. And Holly had pointed it out afterwards, so that was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Go
picked
for
up
it.
the Kelly Green tag, and then I was running back, and I went to open the box, and there was already 2 in there, and I was like, "Wow, that's crazy."
Good.
Yeah, even like the subconscious, kind of things mid race is a crazy thing. But kind of one thing I'm curious about now is you talked about eating there in the early miles, but what did that actually look like for you, eating wise throughout the early miles of this race?
For me, so early on, I was definitely using more gels and honey stinger wafers. Partially because I wasn't allowed or wasn't able to fully take my time to eat because Dan would leave. So I'm gonna blame him. But as the race progressed, I started eating more and more real food. And definitely on the second half, I would eat more like potatoes, ramen, stuff like that. But definitely had my fair share of honey stinger wafers. Thankfully, HollyAnn gave me some, and they got to the point where I was so sick of them, I really did not want any more. I was like trying to force it down in the later miles because I knew I had to eat something, but it's like it just tastes like sawdust in your mouth. I don't know. And the same thing with gels too. Like you get sick of the taste of them and just the consistency. And like at first they look great, but I don't know. It definitely fell apart after a while.
Hmm.
I feel like I did a little better last year nutrition wise, but I mean, I'm not disappointed with how I did this year. For the most part, I'm continually taking in noon endurance that's in my bottle and my vest, and then I had cis gels that I was taking in about every 30 minutes. I had intended to eat a half of a PB&J at 26, 27 at Kennard and left and totally forgot it. So I think about on 28, I went ahead and ate a waffle, honey stinger waffle like Caleb was eating most of the race. And I guess that's about all I had until long point, which is 30,
7, I think. My
37.
watch was very wrong all day.
Yeah, mine was
Yeah.
too. And ended up getting some substance in there. I think I ended up eating mashed potatoes. Was my first like real food. And I think they had some PBs and like fourth PB&Js that I grabbed.
Hmm. And I gotta ask, I'm sure you guys have heard this from me before, but did you get into the pepperoni rolls out there at all? Because I know I did. It's the highlight of the race for me, to be honest.
I wish. I think I told you on a previous episode, the ones
Mhm.
that they have in Fayette Station have cheese in them, unfortunately. I'd actually made some of my own homemade pepperoni rolls to bring. One, because I know Caleb really likes them, so I figured that would be something that he'd grab for at the aid stations. But then end up completely leaving them at the Airbnb and didn't find them until after the 100 milers.
Yeah, they're still good though. Well, what
Oh,
about you
man.
guys? What do you guys eat throughout the race?
Well, a lot of pepperoni rolls, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I made it to 45 because if I didn't make it there, I would have flown all the way across the country for nothing, right? But then I had a lot of your standard aid station fare. I definitely left with a whole soft flask full of chicken broth in the morning. Oh yeah, Caleb, I saw that look. And then a lot of I really like the Spring Energy Awesome Sauce gels, and then there's this company called Untapped that they also do waffles and stuff, but they do just maple syrup shots in a packet like a gel. That I really love those. I'm learning that that's kind of a weird thing to really love, but in a race, it goes down super well. And I think the combination really fits. It was the fall. I had my maple syrup. I had my apple pie flavored spring gels. Like that was all working out for me. What about you, Wesley?
You know, Cam, I'd love to share my answer right now, but I think it's going to be a spoiler for Ridge Hunters Live number 75 next Tuesday with Wes and Cam. Us two will be our first time ever on guest. Well, Cam's second time, my first time ever on this show as a guest. And Mariana Grudziak and Sarah Wallace will actually be co hosting that together
Nice.
as guest hosts. So if you want to hear the answer to what I ate, you'll have to tune into that for that. But let's get back on track, guys.
Sounds good.
Take us through kind of what the middle miles were like. You know, the sun kind of set, I believe, earlier this year. Nope, later. Yep, later this year. The sun, the sunrise and stuff that threw me off personally. Like when I got to Concho and it was still dark, my race was almost ruined. I was like, "What is going on?" I saw last year Caleb and these guys, they came through in the daytime. But kind of talk about what that transition was like for you and how you kind of dealt with the weather as it got colder into the night.
Do you want to go first, or?
You can.
Okay. Well, so obviously it started off kind of cold. 28 degrees. So I had a long sleeve and a shirt underneath. And then as the day progressed, I got pretty warm, but it was weird because you would kind of go around like the gorge and it'd be like cool in some spots and it'd be warm in some spots. So put the gloves on, take them off, put them back on, take them off. Roll the sleeves up, roll them down. Kept doing that up until about Long Point, and then eventually I just got pretty warm at that point. So I was looking forward to taking the shirt off and having just a short sleeve shirt on for the rest of the way. Did that at the turnaround spot when I saw Chris, our crew chief. And I love the Holy shirt, the Rabbit Holy shirt, and I actually didn't have it on. And I was afraid I didn't bring it. So whenever I asked Chris if he had it and he said yes, I was like so excited because it's so breathable. It looks cool. That's the main point. It looks cool. And getting to the turnaround point was pretty big because last year I felt really bad at the turnaround point. And that's a scary thing because you have like half the race left to go. So when I felt really good going into the turnaround, it got me really excited. And I picked up my pacer, JR Loyster, who is a heck of a trail runner himself, and I really wanted to open it up if I could at that point. So we ran decently hard going down that hill and towards Fayette Station. And then when we got to Fayette Station, it's a party. It's like the best aid station ever. So I got to see my boy Craig, who runs the Rangefinders coffee shop, and I got 2 shots of coffee. And then made our way up the hill, ran up the hill all the way up till we got to the trail, and then I did walk while eating some of the stuff I got from the aid station to the top. And then really after that, it was, we knew we were going to go into the Arrowhead trails, which they're bike trails, and they're a little bit tougher to run than what I would say the standard trail, at least for me, just because they're turning so often. So at that point, it's just mainly me and JR talking a lot and him telling stories and just keeping my mind off of things. And at that point, I really thought that I had broken Dan. Maybe I shouldn't have thought that, but I really did. So we get to the Arrowhead aid station. I use the restroom. I get out, go to the tent, and Laura Baker's there. She asked how I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, I feel tired. I ran 71 miles, so I feel pretty tired, but I feel okay. And then Dan just comes right in, right after I said that. And she asked him the same question. And he's like, oh, I feel like $1 million. Let's go. I'm like, all right, JR, we gotta go now. So we left, and I was so down. Like at that point, I thought the race was over. I was like, Dan's going to blow past us going down this hill, and I'm never going to see him again. And it's just there's my goal, just washing away. But JR talked me off the ledge. He kept just talking to me the whole time, telling stories about college and stuff. And eventually we made our way down to Kennard, which was really cool because I saw some of my runners there. I saw the aid station workers. I saw Chris and our crew there as well, and that set us up for the next stage of it. So had the highs and lows in that section, and that was kind of cool. Looking back on it now, it wasn't cool during the time, but just seeing that race develop and throwing our moves whenever we thought that were best, and then seeing the result of them, it's cool.
Absolutely. And we got a few chat questions we'll get to in a second, but HollyAnn, if you want to talk us through that section for you, turn around back to Kennard, this is where I saw you, and I will say, to me, you looked very good, if only because I was trying to recover from the 2 cups of mashed potatoes I ate at the aid station. And also, I was in my mind, I'm like, it's an out and back course, and I'm like, ooh, HollyAnn's the first person I saw going this direction. Does that mean she's winning overall? And then also trying to do that math, that's, a little insight into what my mental space was. But HollyAnn, if you want to talk about how you were feeling during that section.
Yeah, I think the original question was about weather, and the weather to me was like so much better than last year. I know last year I got to a point where I felt like I was just completely bonked on electrolytes, where this year it kind of stayed cool and crisp the entire time. And like Caleb said, I had my arm warmers on, my gloves on, arm warmers down, arm warmers back on, gloves and arm warmers off. And it was kind of this perpetual cycle of that. Like you said, I think the hottest part of the day was the turnaround. And that's whenever I had picked up my Pacer BP. Huge shout out to him. Like for the last 2 years, he has faced me for over 40 miles, not complained. To polar opposite experiences for him as well. Last year, what's going through your mind when you pick someone up and immediately have to hike 40 miles with them. He's amazing, truly. And then this year was a complete 360 where he picked me up and I was feeling great and ready to roll. And it was so exciting to have him there. But same as Caleb, Fate Station was one of my favorites. Craig was down there having a blast dancing, had his cold brew ready. Always puts everyone in a great mood, great spot. Then as we calmed out of Fayette Station, I was just kind of trying to get past that rocky section where I injured my knee last year, because both on the way out and on the way back, I started to feel myself get a little emotional, because I was just kind of this unconscious fear coming back that, I would tweak my knee again in that same spot. So it was this automatic relief as soon as I got past that rocky section and was headed back towards Long Point, which I think is where I ended up seeing you, Cam. You said you were in a potato coma at that time. Long Point came in clutch with the ramen. I had ramen there. It's nice and warm. And still feeling great at that time. Past Josh Keck, and he was getting some footage and cheering us on as we came through. Similar experience to Caleb as we came through Arrowhead. Laura was so sweet and encouraging, asking us how we were doing, and then kind of made the descent down towards Brooklyn again. That was a part of the race that we hadn't done last year, because last year we did Kmart Minors up and Kmart Minors down, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised. Very, very glad that I didn't have to do Kmart Minor down again. Very thankful for that. And then past that point, got to Kennard, and again, still feeling great energy wise, a lot different than last year, and a lot, like I said, better than I was anticipating. I think the people at the aid station told me, like, you look so much better than last year. It's like, well, thank you. I think part of the fun and glamorous part of being a ultra runner, this year it was cupless, so I'm sure y'all had a similar experience where I had ginger ale in my cup, I had broth, I've had potatoes, all between different aid stations. So I think I got to that point, and I'd asked them to do half potatoes, half broth, and she was like, do you want me to wash it out? And I was like, no, I'm fine. It's been a long day. Like, I've already eaten 15 things out of this cup. I'll be fine.
That actually, there's a TikTok trend. I know Wesley's gonna love this. He's a big TikTok guy.
TikTok. Hey, Caleb is too.
I see him on Instagram Reels, but it's the, like, there's some kind of audio that plays and people describe, things that aren't good soup, and then they go, good soup. And that's how I was thinking, drinking later on in the day, some gnarly out of my soft flask that had definitely had chicken broth in it that morning. So we definitely get that feeling. It was kind of a lot of like good soups out there.
Yes.
I thought the same thing at one point where I had mashed potatoes and pickle juice on top. I was like, good soup. And no one knew what I was talking about, but still.
I did. I was 8 hours back, but I did.
You knew.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Before we dive into the finishing stories here, and we've got a bunch of chat questions we are going to get to in a quick second. We want to take our normal 7th inning stretch here, and this time we have a very important message to pass along to Bridge Runner Nation. Back on October 19th, trail runner Ryan Patterson fell off a roof at work and was life-flighted. Thankfully, Ryan survived and is currently going to physical therapy every single week. His friends are hosting a benefit trail race for him to help pay for medical expenses. On December 11th at the Hunter's Tree Farm in Glenmont, Ohio, there will be a 25K, 10K, and 5K run for Ryan. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Ryan. If you're unable to participate that day or get out to Ohio, there is a GoFundMe set up as well if you'd like to contribute that way. Links for this event can be found in the YouTube description down below. This is just one of those things that came across our line. It's just an indication of, the trail running community is truly a special place that looks after everyone. And so a big thank you goes out to everyone helping to make this event a successful one for Ryan. Kind of diving into chat questions now. Cam, I know we've got a bunch of them. What's our first one we got here?
Yeah, so it's not the first one, but I do want to throw out when HollyAnn was talking about Brandon Perry BP being her pacer, he dropped in the chat, hanging on, all caps, exclamation points, was my motto this year. And then she was feeling a little too good, LOL. So BP, I don't know you like this, but I could kind of tell that, coming up to Arrowhead, she was feeling a little too good. But we do have our first chat question. It's actually for HollyAnn. And Kimberly Oth wants to know if you felt any pressure from the second, third place women behind you during the race, or were you mainly focused on racing with the men at the front?
I would say a little of both. Definitely, I guess I had two goals. In placement wise going in, I definitely wanted to be top 5. I'm always aiming for that top spot, regardless if it's male or female spot. And I definitely was hoping to get overall female. I know that was a long shot because there were a lot of really strong women in this field. Whitney, who won last year, she's a phenomenal runner, Team USA. And so that was definitely driving me the entire time. I had a goal of seeing, like how close I could get to Caleb and Dan, or just working towards them. And then a couple other men later on in the race. I had Dirk and Daryl that I was also chasing there in the final miles. But also just knowing, I wasn't sure where Whitney or Kimberly or any of the other women were behind me, but assuming that they were close and that I needed to maintain where I was.
All right. And then this is going to be a couple more questions for both y'all. This one from Isaac Waite. He wants to know, are y'all going to be back at Rim to River next year? And do you have any plans to chase a golden ticket at some point?
We're still trying to figure everything out. Shortly after the race, I was like, I really don't know if I can top this feeling, finishing first and all that. Like, I really don't. I kind of like keeping it as it is. But then, like, last night, I was like, man, I really want to come back. Like, this is home. I was even texting Brandon Perry. So they had that Cabin Fever 50K. I saw the person on Ultra Sign Up who's like ranked first. I'm like, dude, I really want to beat him. I really do. I got to defend the homeland because he's from Virginia and this is mine, but I won't be able to be there. So maybe we can convince, some of these other top guys to come in and have like a really legit, all brawl, in the gorge. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I really want to expand and run other races because I want to see the world. I want to do some different stuff, but this one's home and it's really hard to not come back. So I got to figure it out. But as for golden ticket races, I would love to. That's like my dream come true. I don't know if I can because track seasons, it's really hard to plan, trail races around it. So the only one I'm able to do is the Bandera. And unfortunately, that's not that far away. So like, I don't know if I'll be recovered or not. I don't know if I can train well enough going up into it or not, but I don't know. I don't even know if I can run it fast enough to be even consideration, but it'd be cool. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Isaac, but we'll see. We'll see.
And what about you, HollyAnn?
Yeah, I'm the same as Caleb. Really, really torn because I've always been like, I want to move on. I want to see all there is to offer in every race in the Southeast. And I don't want to get stuck in one race. But if I do, this would be the race. Oh my goodness, this past weekend was everything I could ask for and more. The volunteers, the vibes, this race as a whole, like I wouldn't want to, I can't imagine spending my weekend any other way than I did this past weekend in the gorge. So I'm kind of with Caleb, like it almost feels like tradition now. So it'll be a really hard call about whether or not we are going to be at Rim to River next year or not. Golden ticket wise, me and Caleb had kind of discussed whether or not there was one that we were looking at for the spring. Like he said, Bandera was closer. It's not going to work out for me because I have an employee that's having Achilles surgery and there's only 4 employees. So I kind of have to make sure that I'm there at the lab. But Caleb and I put our time out there on Western and we have a 1.3 chance of getting in.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, 1.3 is still a chance, and then we're never going to write off the golden tickets because we saw what Arlen Glick did, saw plenty of media coverage, like, who is this guy? And then he smoked the whole field,
Yeah.
We knew who he was, but yeah, it's all the belief in the world here for y'all with that one.
And kind of getting you guys back to Rim to River. I mean, what do I have to do? Put you guys like 6th in my predictions for next year's race starting right now? Like, I mean, what can I do? Like, let's get you guys back in this race. I mean, let's all sign up January 1st. I said we're doing a decade-long camp in some capacities, so we'll have to see what that looks like for next year. But I'm sure we'd love to have you guys back out there again, and I'm sure you guys will be out there on race day regardless. But kind of take us through the finishing miles now. I mean, obviously winning this thing, guys, you did it. Set crazy course records. Take us through what those final miles were like and what the emotions were like going through your head. HollyAnn, if you want to start.
Yeah, I guess we can start with leaving Kennard again. I said, still spent a good half of the race in shock that, I'm still in this. I'm healthy. I feel great, and I wasn't sure like when it was gonna hit me. I guess I didn't really get to experience the full 100 last year. When I would truly hit the wall, if I were healthy. So I was kind of testing the waters and seeing where I would be. So I had BP with me still up until Concho, which this year was 7.5 to go. Somehow made it across our buckle both ways without getting in the water this year, which last year I did not. I had a hand from BP on the way back because my legs were a little shaky. At that point they were pretty fatigued. And then as soon as I made it across, he like slips on a rock and gets his gloves in the freezing cold water, and I felt horrible for the remainder of his pacing duties until Chris picked me up at 7.5. But anyway, Chris picks me up at 7.5, and at that point, like, I know in the back of my mind, the last 4.5 on Ace property last year literally felt like an eternity. The longest part of the race felt way longer than 4.5. So I knew that the 7.5 would feel even longer this year, and it did. But I don't know. It just felt amazing having my husband there, helping me through those last 7.5 miles, and being able to see me in a completely different state than I was last year. And I was just kind of kept looking at the clock, and like I said, I was a little in shock that I was where I was. I was aiming for a sub 20 time, but I didn't know that I would be at least an hour off of that. And there, whenever I got out to the road, I was so close to sub 19. But in the last 1.5 miles, my left knee kind of locked up on me like it did last year. And so I was like trying to shuffle as fast as I could, and my left knee kept giving me sharp pains. And one of Caleb's pacer, Lucas, I could hear him like over the road. He was like, "You're at 18:55." And I wanted to scream back, "I know, but I can't move." But we made it. It was just nothing, no words can describe what coming across the finish line this year felt like after like what I experienced last year. And it was just so awesome to have Bryant hand me that gold belt buckle, and I guess he kind of got to see how it all transpired last year versus this year, and it was just a really special moment for all of us.
That's awesome. Caleb, let's hear how it played out for you.
Yeah, so yeah, we get to the Canard, and I'm just getting everything ready, and I pick up Lucas, who's my pacer, put on a long sleeve shirt, and there's Daniel right where I thought he'd be. And it was just in the back of my mind, I knew it was just going to be a what I would call a photo finish, because in an ultra race, if you're within 20 minutes of each other, it's a photo finish. So we just raced. I mean, every moment I was thinking about where he was the whole time. And thankfully, Lucas, my pacer, Lucas Warner, just kept talking to me about random stuff. He talked to me about his plants that he planted, his fruit trees, castrating a pig. I mean, he literally pulled things out of the wall, but it was enough to get me not thinking about Dan, which was fantastic. And I don't know, it's just like we ran a lot of it, which is a lot different from last year. Last year, me and my pacer Alex Miner, we had to walk up most of the significant hills, but not really much this time. So we get to Erskine, we do what we need to do. We get out of there pretty quick, and then we get across Arbuckle. Actually, like HollyAnn, we actually got through without getting too wet. And then we just ran up almost the entire way up the hill, and then sneak our way back up and over the mountain. And once again, I kind of got comfortable. Me and Lucas were just talking, and all of a sudden, I see Dan Slight coming down on the switchbacks, and he yells something to the effect of, "Hey, Bowen!" And I'm like, "Well, there he is." Okay. So me and Lucas plan out what we're going to do at the last aid station. Like, he was going to take my water bottle, fill it up. I was going to get my little cup, or actually his little cup, and fill it up with potatoes and broth. And we were just going to walk. We didn't want to stop and eat or anything. We just want to walk out of there and get out of there as fast as possible. So that's what we did. I don't know if they were completely ready for us because they didn't have the potatoes ready or anything, but that was a common theme too throughout the day. But we got out of Concho as soon as Dan was coming in, and we just ran. I mean, I really did not expect to run the Concho Trail because it's really technical, especially at night. But we did pretty well, and then we ran up the hill, the asphalt hill, going past the finish line, and then just at that point, I had made a decision in my brain that I really wanted to win super bad, that I was going to do about anything. So I kept looking back, and I kept seeing like cabin lights, thinking that was him, but up until the last part where we like pop out on the road, I was not convinced I was going to do it, because I just kept expecting him to blow past me. And then once we got on the road, I was like, okay, I think we got it. I think we got this under control. So you cross the finish line, and I don't know if I've ever been more like ecstatic to win a race in my whole career. I fell down to my knees. It was a little dramatic, but like it was just so cool. It kind of like just hit me at like a wall. I was like, wow, I just raced for 100 miles. Like, last year it was a race, but it was kind of got comfortable there. There was no sense of comfort at all the entire way. I just love that. The fact that Dan was able to push me that hard, and in his debut 100 too, like it was just really cool that we were able to go at it for that long. So, and afterwards I was able to like look up at the stars and really appreciate the beauty of it, because when you're racing you don't really see a whole lot of that, but it made it worthwhile.
Absolutely. Great answers there. Because y'all have both been previous guests on the show, we're gonna skip our usual quick questions.
Yeah.
I do want to give you a chance, if you've got any last minute questions for them, drop them in the chat below. We're gonna get to the last couple of ones here because I actually think they make solid sort of end of show quick questions here. And we're gonna start with Ryan Stanford's. This is a two-parter. But who is going to win in an arm wrestling match? And he's got these matchups for us. So HollyAnn and Molly Siddell, or Caleb versus Jim Walmsley. And I'm gonna put on my Wesley Harton hat and make a prediction and say that Caleb versus Jim Walmsley is a toss-up. Actually, I think they're both toss-ups. But actually, HollyAnn versus Jim Walmsley, not a toss-up. I've got HollyAnn 10 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was it. I say Walmsley wins versus me because he's got a lot more leverage. I mean, he's tall, lanky. I'm sure his arms are twice as big as mine. So he does that battle.
Why am I 10 out of 10?
I think you're gritty in a way that Walmsley isn't.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think Molly has Caleb too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are you thinking, HollyAnn? Are you going to take down a Olympic medalist in an arm wrestling match? Can we get this set up?
That would be tough. I don't know. I definitely have slacked on some of my upper body strength workouts, so I think Molly might have me on that. If you have like something that's a reoccurring, like who can do the longest plank or who could do the longest repetition of push-ups or something like that, then I'll probably grit it out even if I'm not strong enough to.
All right, and then we have a question from Paul DeFord, and he wants to know how long did each of y'all sit down at the Arrowhead aid station to watch the Christmas movie? I'm assuming 20 minutes each, right? You got in a good scene.
Mhm.
I actually don't think it was on when we came through.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that. They were barely dressed up whenever I came through.
I remember
Yeah,
the pickle. There was a pickle.
There was a pickle. Yeah,
mhm,
there's an elf and a pickle and somebody else. Oh, I can't remember.
mhm. Well, Paul, all we have to say is, this is the difference between that silver buckle that you got and those gold buckles. So, we'll see you for the Tuesday morning hills or whatever it is Roebling Runners does.
Friday,
Get you up
Friday.
there
Have some
next year.
respect.
Friday. Okay, I'm not a Cincinnati guy. Come on, leave me alone. Um, but yeah, we'll go ahead and we've got a couple of Rim to River specific um, questions to end with here. Some quick questions. I think y'all have already kind of answered this one, but what is your favorite aid station at Rim to River?
Oh, Fayette Station for sure. I love Fayette Station. Craig is like the noticeable one because we've gone to his coffee shop before, so we really built a relationship with him. But like, whenever I came into it the first time, like we both like locked eyes, and like he pointed at me and I pointed at him. It was like there's a bro connection there, and it was just awesome. And he's like, I was like, "You got what I need?" He's like, "Hell yeah, I got what you need. Come on, let's go." And then on the way back, same thing. Like he had like Get Low playing, and he just got us all jazzed up. And that was also a point where like I had like 4 athletes on my women's team. They were there. My whole family seemed like they were there as well. HollyAnn's parents were there, so I had a lot of people that I knew, all cheering for me at that point. So it was very a fun aid station.
Yeah, I would say Fayette Station was my favorite. All of the volunteers this year at every aid station did fantastic. So it was super close. Also really appreciated the Wuru that was out there this year.
Yeah.
She was so sweet. And I kind of read her write up this morning and was super awesome when you have an injury to turn around and decide to head up to West Virginia and volunteer, even despite her unfortunate events. So it's really sweet.
Definitely. Kind of going on to the next quick question here. What would you say to someone who's considering signing up for this race next year? HollyAnn, if you want to kick this one off.
I would tell them sign up in a heartbeat without a doubt. My goodness, this race will always go down in history for me as the most phenomenal race, most supportive people. It is seriously just so special.
Yeah, Caleb, what do you have?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, there's no question. Just do it. Just sign up on January 1st. You have a great race director who's going to take care of you. You got the best aid station workers I've ever seen, and we've been to other races before, and we've seen them. There's no comparison. Just the course itself. I mean, you got a good mix of everything. You got beauty. You got some really difficult sections, but you also got some really runnable sections. So you're able to go through the highs and lows and get out of it, on the other side. So it's definitely a special race for me. And I have a lot of special races that I hold dear, but it's definitely the one that I think means the most to me. It's challenged me. It's made me who I am today. So I would definitely say do it.
Yeah, hard to argue with that logic, and I feel like everyone's going to be taking that advice and signing up on January 1st. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We just want to give you one final chance to say thank yous and shout out your sponsors if you have any. Caleb, if you want to get started.
I don't have any sponsors, so I guess shout out to the Marshall cross country team for being at regionals this weekend. We race tomorrow at 12-1. So if you're not doing anything, just try to maybe look out for some live results or something like that, and see how we do.
Yeah, and could somebody sponsor this man's, please?
Yeah.
Just some shoes,
Sure.
right? Like, come on, make it happen. 1530s, come on.
Just huge thank you to my husband for holding down the fort. He was crew chief for Caleb and I. My family for being out there. Like I said, BP, like for signing up to run 40 miles with me 2 years in a row. That's huge. All the volunteer and crew people out along the entire course, supporting us, encouraging us the entire way. The Bakers for everything that they did to make this a successful race. And then just a huge thank you to my sponsors, Rabbit, Noon, Honey Stinger, Koros, and another special shout out to Speedland. If anyone got a short chance to watch the documentary at the 50 miler last year, my feet were like completely wrecked. I had blisters on every corner of each toe. My foot was purple. But this year I might have had one blister after 100 miles. So my Speedland definitely were a huge factor in getting me to that finish line healthy.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This is an incredible show to kind of hear your guys' deep dive on the Rim to River 100 this year, and just to kind of just to hear the whole day. I mean, it was an incredible day out there for so many people, and so many people were out there all across Regeneration Nation, and saw you guys out there crushing it, and we had to get you on to talk about your incredible performances. As always, thanks everyone for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. Like I mentioned, next Tuesday, Cam and I will be guests on this show, which will be a first for me. I'm super excited about it, obviously. No, it's going to be a different side of things. I definitely like being on this side of talking and, trying to get the questions going. Answering, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. I don't know. There's going to be 75 episodes of, asking hard questions. Regeneration Nation's going to be in the chat just drilling us with hard questions after hard questions. And so I'm not looking forward to that personally, but it's going to be a good one. Thanks, as always, for watching this one. And we'll be sure to see you guys on the next episode of RRLive. Thanks, guys.